So we're starting our journey again back into the podcast world, where we've had a bit of a gap for a year and a half, something like that, 2 years maybe. And the reason we're doing that is that we've reached a certain point where we've made two films. We've gone through that process, which has given Garvin a chance to experience what that's like. And the great thing is that Garvin's now written a feature film script. So t- tell us your experience, Garvin, of that last 2 year journey that we've just been on.
What? Right, last 2 years. Seems like the last 2 minutes. But what's interesting is we were talking about it for a long, long time. Our talking about it for a long, long time, encompassed 140 podcasts, vlogcasts, talking about, and the first 100 were on this journey for me to go, am I in this industry? The industry in question being maybe the entertainment film industry. Am I a filmmaker? But I wasn't at that point in time. I was full imposter syndrome. And with your guidance and help, and through the journey of the shows, we decided just to start recording, start putting it out there. And as the more we talked and engaged with the processes of starting a business, which was actually starting 52 Jokers Wild and the Film Production Academy and finding our voice in the world and the universe, we found it. A year or two passed. It was COVID times, but we put out about 140 hours or half hours of shows. We talked for the last 50 to the industry, to what I now call my peers, or we call our peers, in the indie micro production industry. Not the Steven Spielbergs, not the Oscar set, but more the filmmakers, those creatives that want to make something with or without budget, or they're trying to just get their stories out there. So we'd done an awful lot of that. And then we said, look, or you said, it's about time we made a film. And I was very, very apprehensive of that, because that was we talked about it. A podcast is not a film. A vlogcast, there might be a bit of video, still not a story, still not a film. And we said we'll just do it. And you pretty much, between the pair of us, we wrote ND, or not wrote ND, you wrote ND, and that was near debt, short. We like using all these little acronyms. And we said, okay, now it's time to go do. And we did. We went and done. We tried a couple of ways beforehand, and the
well,
more
actually, there's part of the story, because we had 3 goes to start that. And if you remember that the first time round, we were leading up to a week before, and I ended up in hospital.
The universe says no.
The universe says no, or
no.
whatever you want. Yeah, it was a struggle. And then that was the November, I think, of 2022. We then said, right, okay, let's go in the early part of January 2023. And then winter came in and the floods came in and all havoc broke loose at your end. And then we decided that what we'll do is we'll do a test anyway. We'd just come down for the day, do a test and see what happens. And then there's another hiccup there. And about 2 months later, we actually did the shoot with a number of people. And we began to realize that we have to actually listen to our own experiences, our own ways of doing things, because you can get confused with everybody else trying to put in their penny's worth. And it also means it doesn't fit into the model that we're trying to work on. And I think that was an important part of that process. We knew how to do what we're doing. We knew how to get results out of it through breaking the film down as you did, which matched into the way that I did things. And we then thought, well, okay, I'd written my script. We produced my little film, had that ready by August. And then it was time to get you writing, which there was a challenge there for you, because you were wondering whether you could write the story, and then something happened that allowed you to write that story. Tell us a little bit about that.
No, I'm not telling you about that at all. No, it give away the background, and it's better if people think I made it up. But if we go back to what you were saying, the first near death, MD. The strange thing about it is we were all near death. As you said, you touched on it. The people that were going to be involved at the beginning, half of them got COVID, or half of them were near death with other illnesses and other issues. Yeah. And it just didn't look like it was going to get done till it did. Now, it took to the March of the following year to actually just go do. And we simplified again in that timeline, whereby the more we try to introduce more people or other things into it, it became more complex, and we became more unwieldy and less in our own control. So what was very, very good is we were controlling the story, the narrative, if you want to say, and then we decided, look, we might as well control it all from end to end as much as possible, other than the actors, because we were, this is more our story in the short term, to go, let's make our film, let's do a short, see if we can do it, and reduce the number of moving parts. And like, nowhere in my life, like before that, or a number of years, like just like after meeting yourself, would I ever considered or thought that it'd be possible that I'd be making a movie, first of all, short be it, but never mind spending 3 days in my own bathroom with 4 adult men, doing it. So, I mean, my own family thought, what the hell's going on? We've been barred from our own bathroom for nearly a week. And, so the madness of making a film and, using the locations at hand was very, very interesting to see what came out of the box afterwards. And, but as you said, that whole exercise and process, and the amount of 19 jobs that you put into it, like after the fact, to package it from end to end. We had a film, we put it into festivals, it starts winning awards, but from where, the strange thing is, you're putting it out into this universe of Film Freeway, and there's bells and stickers and all sorts of people you don't know are saying it's good, bad, and indifferent, and it's still strange. All we can say is we wrote something, we from ideation to production to screen, we did it. We achieved a process. And now it was, let's go do it again. And you gave me permission to give myself permission to go right. Now, as I said, that was a big step from you doing it to me writing it, to produce, to be a co-producer, to even be an actor in it. That was absolute madness.
There was a struggle for you there, because you had, I mean, in the previous podcast, we showed you in the marathon advert, or whatever it was then, as a youngster, and then you got into this second iteration of filmmaking experience because your son had been an extra, and then you suddenly became an extra, and then as an extra, all the filmmakers started talking to you because they realized you was an accountant, that was your background, and all of a sudden you were helping them solve problems because they didn't know how to solve them, which was literally production management skills that they didn't understand and hadn't implemented to make their films. But you suddenly started to do that, and that's when you then gave a call out, and I got talking to you because I realized there was a connection that we could have, and we did our first little shoot then as well. But I think also then when we went to do GVH, there was an excitement that you had in writing that script, which I enjoyed it, and I edited down to make it sure it works as a script. But one of the things I'd also like to encourage you to do is to turn the full-length feature film version of that into a book, because you're halfway there. It's that book part that I had to take out the script to make it a script, so that we can work on it and the actors will be able to work with as well. But I think the other thing was that all of a sudden, going from being an extra, being considered by a lot of people to be a producer, which you hadn't sort of accepted that role at that point yet, there was an opportunity now all of a sudden to play a part, and your imposter syndrome kicked in a few times, because you were kind of thinking, I'm going to be working with professional actors and I'm not going to know what I'm doing, and how am I going to get through this? But by being you, being you as we're seeing you now, I think you were able to embrace the role and have a go, and it showed you another aspect of the filmmaking process from the actor's point of view, as well as the writer's point of view, and as well as the producer's point of view, to see how these elements went together to make a short film. And I know that with the costumes, that brought up a few sort of issues for you. Tell us a bit about the costumes and how that went.
No. Again,
no, you're going to have to answer some of these questions.
I'll answer it after the fact, of course. I mean, but you're asking me a question at the end after going on for about 2 minutes about everything. The production
I gave you
process.
a specific, yeah.
So I'm sitting here going up an answer to the first bit, the second bit, the third bit. Now he's chucked in costumes, and I go, that would be the least thing I'd be talking about, given you've just said I was a production manager, potentially understanding my transferable skill set to allow me get into the industry. But then while in there with yourself, what we did over the last number of years is we explored what wasn't film courses, because I never went off and did a film course, but more how we went on this journey together was through the course of the film, which is, like you said, I've experienced from the script, from the idea of let's go write a script, to you actually writing one that will fit the minimum budget or what we had in terms of available resources, going, look, we're in control of these locations, we're in control of, we're not in control of these people, we know these people, and we can write something minimum, and we know we can deliver on it end to end. So that we took control of the minimum micro budget process effectively of the course, or the film course. Not the film.
Well, the course of the film. Course of the film.
And then, so that's our language now going forward. We suddenly realized, what are we? What can we do? What can we sell? What can we package? We can package the course.
Yeah, but I think let's go back.
Now, back to
you're actually going into sales pitch there.
Yeah. No, but again, at the same time, you're going, how do I get the costumes? But from getting from MD to GVH, I've been given permission to go write. It was writing under the guidance of what was learned in the first one to go. It was having gone through the course of that film. It was to write and understand as a writer, the producer and director requirement and the resource available set to us. And I was writing within those confines. I kept on changing. Like I go large, I can stick in some costumes or special effects. Go, no. There's 3 rooms out the back. It has to fit in there. Mm-hmm. It's not right a costume for our actors. It's what they turned up in, and we're within reason.
And I think that's the area that we're trying to explore there, because we know that Dexter had a wealth of costumes, but as your character in the story developed, you also found yourself deciding to have a series of costumes.
Well, the strange thing is I wrote that character, being Ubo, I started to think with Dexter in mind, and knowing he had that this is actually his personality in terms of external expression, that would bring a novel factor. If he just turned up in his everyday clothes, it looks like we've gone full costume drama. So it was a win in terms of this is available resource.
Now remember, on
top of the actor.
Yeah. But then Big G had the same issue.
Now I had to compete. What was written, and what I realized in the story was these characters, there's a mirroring of characters. We have Ubo and Nips. We have one which wants to be the aspiring gent, yet he might be a criminal, and the other that takes, Nips, that goes, look, this is me, take me I am. I've got a tracksuit. I'm not trying to be something else. Now I am probably the aspiring, the character might have been based on me loosely at the beginning, but then took on a life of its own. But at the same time, to have this mirroring effect within the story arcs, as your language might say, I suddenly realized I better match this guy change for change. Yes. Now, so I had to dig hard and deep in my wardrobe, going back to 70s and God knows what, and go, can I match him on a 1-to-1? And it took an awful lot of effort just to turn up and change my shirt, but I did. And again, it gave no one might even notice that in the film, but it was more for ourselves.
But if you think back to the actual day of the shoot, because of the way we couldn't get Katie on board until the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we were there on the Wednesday and Thursday, so we had to shoot everybody's scene. We shot most people's scenes on, all the scenes with the lads in it, and then we had to shoot half of your scenes on the Thursday. And then we had to get the reaction shots from Katie on the Friday. So there were 2 different days of shooting. And then there was the issue with the costumes. Which one were you wearing at which particular scenes? How did you feel through that process? Think about that.
You've got 2. It depends if you were like, this is the madness of I am writer, I am actor, I am producer. And it's like in business language as well. Like if you own the business, you're the shareholder wanting value, but then if you're employing yourself to deliver that value, you've got this, conflicting set of, requirements. So me as actor, I don't want the responsibility of dressing myself and I just want to turn up and deliver my lines, and it wouldn't be great if everything was just there. So, but in that learning experience, you suddenly realize, wouldn't it be nice for continuity purposes of the language of the process that all the clothes were just there in a rack and a rail in order by scene and location, and someone checked me before I went out to make sure I was maintaining continuity.
Yeah.
Now, that was a big learning takeaway from the jump from ND to GBH in terms of the added complexity we put in, but we actually put it in on the days in question.
Yeah.
I just decided to wear these clothes and turn up and do this competition of best dressed, first up, best dressed. But we both didn't realize we were adding this complexity of continuity, and there were a couple of little mishaps on the days in question based on the swapping and arranging of scenes and shots. But that's the learning process.
I think the great thing was that because we had Dominic with us on that part of the shoot, and as an actor that had been involved in a German production and various other things, he had seen things in place, and he'd seen very things that you just described there, and gave us a few tips about how to photograph every person and the slate board so that we could see which scenes everybody was in and what slate had been taken, so we could cross-reference that with the log sheet. So that was a very useful thing. So although that caused a bit of stress, I think the learning that came out of that was quite powerful, because we can now implement that into Any Which Way But Out, the next production, the feature film version of it. And we can go through and literally with the script say which costume 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can list those out and have a sequential order for when to shoot.
The thing is, we did have, the strange thing is we had done an awful lot more planning and prep than most people at the level of micro budget, short indie would do, because those resources just aren't there to put that amount of planning in. But the very nature of your background and my background was, we had it down to the shot, down to the storyboard, down to the minute of the day, and we kept to those shots, weather permitting, and a couple of erroneous things.
Say weather permitting.
But within down to the shot of the last shot, 187 or wherever it was, we arrived at 6 o'clock on the 4th day exactly on time, with all shots in the can plus some. But what was interesting in the terms of, we had the documentation there that would have allowed for these bits in that was just wasn't, it wasn't an oversight, more so we were already doing 10 to 20 rolls as it was.
Yeah, well, the amount of planning that we put into it allowed flexibility on the day of the shoot to be creative. And I think that's what most people don't realize, is that they think if they don't have to plan, they could be more flexible and more creative, but it actually creates chaos. And I've experienced that on shorts in the past, which is why I followed the process that that we actually used on the 2 films. And I'd used it 20 years ago on Fiddler's Walk, exactly the same process. And it meant that it could guarantee that what you're shooting, what you're going to get at the end of the day, and that you'll have it. And I think those are important sort of examples that we used in this, which other people hadn't experienced and didn't even know how to process that.
The great thing, George, was we actually got it all done on time with all these issues having arisen. Yes. And the strange thing is, we were having our half hour, no, not strange. We put in half-hour tea breaks, lovely lunches, nice dinners. You didn't do more than 8 hours in the total day. And in those 8 hours, we got more done than we had planned each day. And then even within those timelines, we'd actually built in that extra flex for running around like headless chickens. But actually, I think what we had actually done, if I remember this right, we shot both sets of clothes twice, just to be sure.
Just to be sure. Because there was, And I think that's important, because we did actually have this philosophy, if in doubt, shout. We can redo very quickly. We also got into the habit of not re-looking at everything that we had done, because by the time you've re-looked at it, you could have shot something.
And there was the lovely
thing. That was the thing.
And now there was a terrible little, as you would say yourself, and it's used in the industry, and I hear, but because we had our editor directing, there was an extra ability that we were building in, which was to fix it in post. But we were shooting it in production to have this availability in post to fix, given we know we caught it there. and it wasn't this separation to the editor.
Yeah.
So now what was if you go back to an earlier question you answered or alluded to, what's happening with the course of the film is I, as actor, I gave myself, or you actually, there was a moment in time when we wrote GBH that said, am I taking a bit of the piss here now, putting myself in the role? Or I know the role might be based on me or as a character or as an individual or loosely based on, but should we not put someone else in? But you yourself said there's never going to be a time ever, given you've wrote it, you won't get this opportunity again to play this part, given the part is based on myself. And in terms of acting, ask, if I can't be me, then who else can I be?
Yeah.
And therefore give it a lash, give it a go, and we'll see how it plays out. And it was lovely to be in that nurturing environment whereby you were there and the others were there, and we gave ourselves that time and space to effectively give it a go.
And I think that that's an important philosophy that we have, because a lot of people are so used to, they have to stick within certain confines or boundaries. And because this is our own project, we could actually give ourselves that permission to do the thing we'd love to do, but never had the guts or had the chance to do. And I think that's why it was so important to give you that opportunity, because it also means that in future productions, from the producer's perspective, you've got a really good idea of what the actors are going through. You've also got a good idea. I mean, the other thing we haven't talked about is the fact that you learned how to do sound. Now, to a certain level, but the sound that you recorded on both films is in the two finished productions that are currently going into film festival, and the quality of the sound was really, really good.
And what was great, now again, we're not meant to be selling the course of the film or the film course, but what we were trying to come up with for ourselves is, as you said, we're in control of an end-to-end process. And if we can take away the risk of lots of moving parts for others, then the others can turn up into and insert themselves into this sort of environment or microcosm of filmmaking and basically go through the roles we're talking about. And what better way, and we didn't know it until the day in question, based on Alan, our main sound guy, suddenly hurt his back or was and just pretty much handed me I don't even know what to call the equipment. I mean, okay, the sound recorder and the boom. But I found myself, regardless of wanting to or having time to be apprehensive about it, going from being an ex-accountant to going, as you said, you're now the sound person on this film, so you're not. Yeah. And admittedly, the great fallback there was, not 2 feet behind me was my mentor. And, I was shadowing him and he was mentoring me into the minimum that's required and needed to effectively do what we were trying to do, which is catch the minimum. We're not trying to do special effects, but as you said, did it once and then did it again. So there, and the beautiful thing about what you've done in terms of the end-to-end process, we said, the journey here we were trying to offer others and ourselves is, what is the final part of the journey? It's the credit. The film is actually made, it's out there at festival, it's winning awards, and everybody got their credits. And as you said, I did sound. I've got a sound credit. I'm not going to go off there myself and become a sound man. I don't want to be, but it shows someone that came in virgin, vanilla, no experience before, was able to be mentored into the position on the day that sound was of the quality required to go get the credit and be the sound used at the end of the day, which is fabulous, and then do go again. So I'm confident anyone else in a similar situation to myself, no matter what their background, can achieve the same end, even if it's only for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10. They don't need to know anything beforehand. They just need to know they can do it, and the equipment is there, and that's what it looks like.
I think, yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we're going to do is to basically bring everything down to its basic level. What are the key features that you need to understand to operate during every scene? And as long as we can slow that whole process down, everybody can learn from what their task is within that, simple arrangement of a shot, and also enjoy that kind of process. And I mean, one of the things that was really good on GVH was that because Dominic Lane, who was the actor, had got experience on set, he also, when you couldn't do audio, he recorded audio. But because, again, he'd seen how an assistant director worked, he was operating almost as an assistant director for me, which took the pressure off me as the director. And we're going to enhance that part of the process within the next production, because it allows me time to talk more with the actors, work things through with the actors, as opposed to being responsible for everything else around. I mean, on GVH, as opposed to ND, we had the minimal crew. It's just me, you, and the actors. Yeah. And we still followed that plan, but we had 4 days to do it in. And there was one point where, because you were out acting, Dominic was driving a car that Dexter had to be in, that I was holding. I was holding the camera, the clapperboard, and the boom, and trying to work out how to get it so I could operate.
Well, it was one of the best shots, come to think of it. So, I mean, it's a strange. No, the weird. What you were talking about there was, no, we're not meant to be doing a sales pitch for.
No, we're not. No.
What's going on?
We're just sharing experiences.
We keep on saying that, and then we keep on going back and doing it. But the weird thing is, what I find interesting is, whenever we do the sales pitch, I am probably the best case in point that's being brought through from start to finish under multiple roles, and the evidence is in, I knew nothing beforehand, and you mentored me, and we did it, and there's the evidence. So it was an experiential journey of being confident enough to turn up, and if we did it wrong, well, do it again. There's not this expectation from us that as the production team that, look, you need to be doing this, you need to have it right. No, it needs to be an experience, and it needs to be comfortable. And when we're comfortable in that experience and enjoy it, then on that learning curve and be I was self-directed by the end of ND, in a sense of I was leaning in, I was leaning out, I was turning on, double checking, recording, taking note of. I mean, do it 10 times, and actually, we got thunder here, believe it or not. We probably have to take the sound out. It's going to be lightning next. So thunder and lightning.
I think your feed froze for a fraction of a second there, but your sound will still be recorded.
When we said we'd do this recording, what we said is we're just not going to overthink it. We're going to start again. Not starting again. We're just taking up from where we left off. And actually, forget the films that went in between. Well, we're here. We're here for the last 5 years. We haven't stopped. We've actually upped the game each time and took on more roles ourselves and went deeper dives. And the evidence now there within a 6-month period, we've got 2 fully finished, totally different genre, different levels of complexity and depth, short films out at film festival, winning multi-awards. Now, again, I'm not overly putting credit into the awards, but I'm just saying this is our peer set. I keep on remember to take the wins. You keep on saying take the wins.
Take the wins.
They're real. They're out there. We're no longer talking about it. We're doing it. Here's the evidence. And that's given. I'm no longer feeling the imposter syndrome. I'm looking forward to going larger, going bigger. And you touched on it there earlier on. You said, to such an extent, I've written a feature. You're doing some script.
I was about to ask you about that.
And you're in mid-process writing a feature. And we're saying the next iteration is 2 features on a journey. And it's not how quick we can do it.
Let's just
who are we doing it with?
Yeah, let's just pause there for a second too, because what I want to try and do is I want to explore with you in the next few minutes. We've gone from you starting off as an extra, realizing that the industry needs help in trying to organize itself, even to get in the productions, because we were looking at, do we start putting in for funding into some of the awarding bodies, but we realized that wasn't going to be a good, useful thing, because we'd still be trying to get funding to make these 2 films. I wrote my short script, you've written your short script, and as you said a few times, you wouldn't believe 5 years ago someone, if they told you that you were going to write a feature film. What changed your way of thinking that you could do a feature film?
Well, the strange thing is, once we had that we have a 15-minute short GVH at the moment. It was probably a little bit longer given the continuity bits we cut out and all the rest. the language we found, that I started to understand, was it's one scene or 100 scenes. It's the same process. It's time. It's a many minute. We have this language of, if you've taught me to understand that if we've got a short, then for every day we might get 3 to 4 minutes of output, depending on complexity of moving parts. But if you want 20 minutes, it's 5 days. If you want 90 minutes, it's 30. Or, and you're going, and therefore, if you can do a short, you can do a documentary, you can do a feature. There's nothing stopping you other than, is the story there? Is there interest there? And if you took away the parameters of barrier, which I normally put in, is you don't have the money, therefore you can't think, you stop. That was the same in business. It's going, if you're limiting yourself to the budgets that's there, you limit your thinking before you start. And therefore you've already cut the story to the bone. Whereas if we go the opposite way and go, right, let's write the story, but try not to be overly complex, and then highlight the complex and the simple, and then bring it back to its minimum and go, this we can do and it can achieve with the resources. This is what we'd like to do if we had a budget. But it's not a case of we're not doing it because we don't have it, and we don't. There is this journey of the micro budget community. An awful lot of people, if they come from the silo of themselves, have to find these other people willing to go on the journey with them under their story. And that's I think the problem most people are finding. They haven't found a like-minded. We're like-minded individuals coming from two polar opposites that have met in the middle and found our language. And we know we can repeat it. And actually, not only can we repeat it for ourselves, we can package it so we can go on a sustainable journey of it for ourselves and give access to it to others. Now I'm just going, there's a language in this industry whereby, it's the short to feature jump. Do you have does everybody have a story in them? And the strange thing was, that story presented itself to me. You gave me permission to write it. It turned into a comedy because that's just the way I perceive things. It could have been something else. Actually, it's a situational comedy, not a ha-ha, funny comedy. But the rest, there's a bigger story there, which all you have to do is think of the before, the during, and the after, and what happened next. And you can take these characters on journeys and stories and different adventures. So not only is there a feature there, there's probably episodic abduction and a whole series there. And I know we can write that. I know we can do that. The only thing that's missing is money. But if we say it's not missing and coming, then we'll give our permission to go on the journey to meet it. But while we're here now, we are in this feature space. I'm excited about, finding these people to play these characters. And based on listening to our own podcasts in the past, every last one of them I keep on listening to, have become a self-fulfilling journey of giving permission to ourselves to go to the next level each time.
I think, going back to what you were just saying there about if you're waiting for the money, which always seems to be an issue with a lot of filmmakers, what I've found is that if I'm waiting for the money, my life is going to be gone before I've even reached it. And I have worked with a number of people who have spent 20, 30 years trying to get a single project off, and they've got no closer to it because the same barriers are in the way. What I've found is if I have the capabilities of doing something, then why not just put it into action? And I've ended up making numerous films. I don't generate lots of money. I haven't generated lots. That's the next part that we're trying to sort of learn. But somehow, somewhere, the resources have come together. The excitement has come together through the body of people that I've had working with me or helping out. That the energy level has been built up. That we've managed to do the films that we've done, and we've got into that through even today. Let's just record a podcast, because we hadn't for some time, and then we suddenly realized that we were having these conversations, and we don't have to overcomplicate even the podcast, which is why this format is now, you're seeing 2 screens with me and Garvin, and we're not going into a great post-production thing. We're just going to package it and just let it go, and because that's what everybody else is doing. Why do we need to overcomplicate everything? It means that all the energies that we have for fine-tuning things goes into the shorts or the feature film productions to make sure that they are where the value goes in. And from my part, I've really enjoyed the shooting of it, the building up relationships with the people that have been involved in the shoot, but also having the opportunity for me to write the music for the 2 films, which I never thought I was capable of. So that's a permission thing again. And although it's kind of, well, how far do you go? When you started to see possibilities and opportunities, you then wanted to push the bar out further and further and further to see how far you could get and what you could achieve. Funny thing is, they've just updated Logic Pro to version 11 in the last few days. And there was one part I wasn't happy with, the bass part of the Any Which Way But Out music that we did. And I've actually changed it. So I'm actually going to put it in and re-upload the film to all the places. So the next iteration that gets shown in film festivals has the music that I want. But we're in that position to do that. It hasn't cost us anything other than a couple of hours of just messing around. But that's how you learn. That's how you learn how to do something and build that confidence to know that you can execute it with another group of people. And I think that's an important part to do. So that's where we're going. And we're giving ourselves now, I've just heard that beeping go again. There's a notification came through. We're just going to give ourselves permission to make the next feature film. And we know how to do it, and we know what blocks to put it into to do that. And that's why we're literally starting this podcast, not to fill our time in, but to basically record the process that we're going through to get the next feature film and the next couple of feature films, however that works out, because we don't know how that's going to turn out yet. We're just going to implement the actions that we know that we can do to make it a possibility and to cut out as much risk as possible.
Now, I'm reminded of, I think I saw some little TikTok or Facebook or God knows what social media thing earlier on, and I was talking about major and minor. I said, so it's just not spend your major amount of time on the minor things, but it's to concentrate on the major thing, and don't wait it the wrong way around. Now, I've been given too many minor things, too much import or importance, and think I'm doing big things, and you're not. You know, you're putting them on task lists, you're ticking boxes, but they're not making big moves and not doing big things. And that's the strange thing is, I think our minors were actually the podcast earlier on. It was fabulous journey of it, but we could have kept on going forever. Things stopped us, but they stopped us to go a bit more major.
Yeah,
it was, we've done enough of that. And you said it, I don't know how many times, and went, look, you know how to make a film, Garvin. You know enough now. We can make it. Don't worry about it. We can make it. We just do it, and we did. And then we did it. And then now you can write. And actually, the circumstances just presented themselves that I had a story, and you said, look, just write it down. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
we did it. The great thing here is now that we know we've this show, we're thinking it might be called Keeping It Real going forward, in the sense of we just want to be ourselves and honest. What's behind us and in front of us is us. So we're not going to dress up and brand out, the back and blur the things, because that's all minor nonsense. It's not the major moves. So we're going on a journey. We have a target of, we want to be doing, wouldn't it be great if we could do features? And if we're doing that, then we're achieving these major goals we'd set many a year ago for yourself. And I'm now aligned with to go, I feel I can be a part of that journey and be involved in those type of projects. And therefore, we're on a major journey of what's left of our lives. We're not going to be distracted by the minor things. When we're doing something, we're doing it well, and it adds to the journey. We can't be guaranteed to get where we're going, but we understand it's about the journey, not the destination. So this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. This is the language we're using. We found our language. We found our comfort zone where I'm not an imposter in what I'm saying or doing or talking about anymore. And I feel the confidence given my mentors, with yourself and the people we surround ourselves with, that we can enjoy spending the majority of our time going forward doing those things that matter, as opposed to wasting our time with the minors.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to actually end this episode. And what I'd like to encourage anybody that listens to this is to share it as much as possible, either through Spotify or Apple or wherever they find it, even on YouTube. Our focus is going to be on what we're actually doing, not on all the other stuff that everybody else seems to be wanting us to do. And I think we're just going by what our gut feeling is, and to set the goals that we want to achieve and go for it and achieve those goals. And part of that is actually sharing that journey with you through this podcast. And we're going to keep it as simple as it is. You'll notice that the backgrounds that we have are the messy backgrounds of our life. We're just keeping it real. We're not going to put anything else in just to spruce things up a little bit. We want that effort to go into the films, and that's where we're actually going. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and sort of click on whatever bells and whistles you need to click on for notifications, or
we don't really care.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key thing.
And more to the point, get on with your own majors and ignore the minors. Just go do.
Absolutely. And if what we're talking about helps you, or if you've got any ideas of how to help us in that sense, maybe in what we should be talking about, please let us know. And we look forward to seeing you, or hearing you, or hearing that you're out there listening to us at some point. So thanks very much for joining us on this episode. Bye for now.
Thanks a lot. Keep it real.